up to 1930 maybe, it was very clear, except in local places, that humanity was not affecting structure. From about 1930 on, it became apparent that humanity was affecting structure on a planetary scale. The evidence is there in the CO2 trace and so on and so forth. Once you demonstrate that this organism called humanity is affecting structure, then there is no alternative left, but humanity has to begin to control. There is no, it would be lovely if that wasn't true. But we have to, we can no longer be children of nature. We have no retreat.
In this whole issue of sustainability, there are many items that are still very uncertain. And one of the most uncertain is what precisely are the implications for humanity of extinguishing perhaps half, perhaps three-quarters of the other species on the planet. The only honest answer to that is that we don't know. And I would suggest that rather than using that as an excuse to trying it and finding out, the intelligent and rational response is to say that if we don't know something, we don't do it until we do know a little more about what's involved, and we can be quite sure that the results are not going to be catastrophic. And I'm pleased to say that through something called the precautionary principle, which all the governments who were at the UNCED conference decided that they approved of and which they put their pens to, the precautionary principle says just that when we are uncertain about something, we are cautious and we do not take risks which may turn out to have very, very large costs indeed.
A system is resilient if it is capable of adjusting positively to exogenous shock. If it is capable of responding in a way which preserves the self-organization of that system. Now that notion of resilience seems to me to apply very nicely to economic systems. If an economic system is capable of meeting the various challenges posed by the environment, then there's a very good chance that it's going to be sustainable, and there's a very good chance that the productive potential of the asset base itself will be maintained. And that's what preserving the value of the asset base requires. It requires preserving the productive potential of the asset base.
Economics, as far as I understand, is a science where you learn to economize with what you have. So what's really a difference between ecological economy and economics and usual economics?
We always economize on what is the scarce factor. And now the scarce factor is more and more natural capital. It used to be man-made capital, and natural capital was superabundant. Now, as a result of the growth of the human subsystem within the overall ecological system, we've changed the pattern of scarcity. Remaining natural capital is now the limiting factor. It's more scarce than human capital, than man-made capital. So fish catch is limited by the remaining populations of fish in the sea, not by the number of fishing boats. So we have to begin to economize on natural capital. And this is really what ecological economics is doing. It's calling attention, forcing attention to this changed pattern of scarcity. And so the object of our economizing now has to be remaining natural capital. Standard economics has been, its whole idea of value has been almost totally rooted in very individualistic assumptions. And so part of it is expanding out to a more community-based notion of value.
And the market system doesn't work anymore.
Well, it works, but it has a very restricted area within which it works. It's very good for allocating resources among alternative uses among individuals with given income distribution and so on. But it's not much good for setting the scale of the total human economy relative to the ecosystem which contains it.
Okay. Oh, these look much nicer than on the other side. You can see there are very little epiphytes on them, very little filamentous algae. And if you shake them, you will find lots of animals inside.
It's not just a matter that we would like to value, be able to value natural systems such as fish, but the economy itself depends on those. And it will collapse without those inputs. It will collapse without the existence of fish and clean water and forests and the ability to clean up waste that come out of the economy. So since we don't value it, since there isn't any way to, in the market system to value it, it gets used up. And before you've reached a critical point, you may have lost the resource that in fact is supporting the economy.
Since this is the only large algae in the Baltic and it's so large diversity of species in here, it's also very important as a foraging area for fish and as a spawning and recruitment area. And of course, if this single system is a part of a very important part of the Baltic ecosystem, if that would disappear for some reason, of course also all its importance for the fisheries would disappear, and probably it would mean a great economic loss to the Baltic if the bladder wrack disappeared.